get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down.
What's up, boys and girls? Phil and I are back again for another great episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progard, that's me. Happy to be joined, as always, by my longtime partner in crime, Phil Byrne. And Phil, it's been a minute. First time we're kind of doing this bi-weekly Kneecaps for Breakfast edition. So here we are. It's been a minute, but we're back.
We are back, yeah, and kind of an unusual time to go ahead and tape an episode too.
Yeah.
If we may want to go ahead and say it. So, by the time you're listening to us, it'll be Friday morning. So usually at the beginning of the week, this time we're at the end of your work week. So usually got something special in store that's gonna make us do something like that. So no, as far as I can tell, the Lions did not go ahead and just trade for a defensive end on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson.
No, they sure didn't. They sure didn't.
We got the NFL schedule to talk about, Vince. We know who the Lions are going to be playing and when.
Yeah, and that's the important
thing.
That's the important thing. We've known all along who the opponents were going to be, and people were talking all off season long about, they're getting that last place schedule, and therefore they're going to have one of the easiest schedules in football, and that's a bunch of boola, if you ask me. I think that all 32 teams are worthy of going into another team's house and winning a football game regardless. So it's not like college sports where there's the clear-cut line of difference between the haves and the have-nots. There's really, in my mind, no such thing as an easy schedule or a hard schedule in the NFL. It can go any way possible. And we saw it a season ago where we thought the Lions were going to have such a difficult schedule. They struggled with the schedule, but I think that was more of an internal struggle as opposed to just the teams they were lining up against not being very good, because when the dust settled, Phil, they played like the 22nd schedule in all of the NFL, which, in case you're keeping track in the other direction, that's like the 10th easiest schedule in the sport, and they still didn't make the playoffs because of it. So you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and I think the armchair quarterback approach to like a schedule getting released is to go through it and immediately say win, loss, win. Okay, I got the team going.
And tonight's not the night we're going to do that. Just spoiler alert.
No. So just prep yourself for that. There'll be a time and place. Let's get through training camp and maybe even preseason before we do something like that. But I, as a Lions season ticket holder, I was curious as to how these games were going to break. We had the Germany game spoiled the day before, or like earlier on this week.
And that was by design. They revealed all of the international games all at once as part of the NFL Network's Good Morning Football coverage. So it wasn't like some podcaster or Twitter genius was out there just dumping games out into the stratosphere. So that's what we're doing. And I for one am really excited to be here on this day doing this, because if you and I would have tried pulling this off a week ago, I was sick as a dog a week ago. So the fact that we didn't have a show was music to my ears, and because I would have been living through it like Brian Branch coming off that bum Achilles. So it would not have been a good sight, but we're all good now. So let's dive into this, Phil. We knew going in who the opponents were, but again, we just didn't know the order. So let's jump right into it. Leading off and playing first base. Never mind, wrong sport. The Lions in week 1 are taking on the New Orleans Saints at home to start the regular season, and they're back in familiar territory, Phil. I think we were kind of concerned something like this was going to happen after what happened a season ago, but we're back to the familiar 1 o'clock on Fox, probably Chris Myers on the call. It just comes with the territory. After struggling mightily a season ago, the Lions are, like I said, back in that 1 o'clock on Fox against the Saints to start the season.
Yeah, and I think the thing is like, it really doesn't matter what time slot the Lions are in. I think the NFL still knows that they're essentially still a draw. I think you put the Lions on in any game and you're going to get almost a record rating, I think, in some things. And obviously you can't play all your games in prime time. I'm glad they don't play all their games in prime time as someone that has tickets to these games.
That is true.
Um, I kind of don't mind this as an opener. I need to see a lot from this team to get me to buy in a little bit. I think the Saints could be on a little bit of the come up. I think they had a pretty solid draft. I think all things considered, I think they've got some good young talent there. We're not going to get into the predictions or
No,
anything,
too early.
but like let's be real with some of this. Like this is not opening on the road at Lambeau. This is not opening on the road at Soldier Field or even against the Vikings or some of the more difficult teams on the schedule. Like I think as a Lions fan, you should feel confident that they're going to be entering that game at least as a favorite to start the season. From there, it'll get a little bit interesting, but like I don't mind opening the season just in a kind of humble 1 p.m. slot on Fox against the Saints.
And coming off of that, you're going to get a quick turnaround because game 2 is going to be on Thursday Night Football, Amazon Prime. It's their only Thursday night game of the season.
Yeah.
Interesting draw for this one, though, Phil. It's going to be at the
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills. Why is that important? Because the Bills are opening their brand spanking new Highmark Stadium that night. So that place is just going to be bonkers against the Lions. Lions, Bills, two of the blue collar franchises in the sport. You know that fan base is going to be riled up, looking to kind of get back on track after the way the season ended a year ago. And I think Amazon Prime picked a great game in my mind to kick off
Yeah.
their slate of games this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with this one too, we saw what the Bills and playing them at home a couple seasons back. I don't can't remember if it was a Thanksgiving Day game or not, but it was later on in the season.
Yep.
Um, this is a team that I would rather play them in the early part of the schedule, even if they are amped to the nth degree for that home opener. We know it won't be cold there.
Nope.
You're taking the weather element out of it. Yeah, and again, don't want to overlook the Saints or anything like that, but I don't think you'll have to go through hell and brimstone in week one. So on that short turnaround, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Do I expect us to maybe win that one? Not really. I think the Bills, I think right now, I think should be a better team than your Lions, but yeah, I'd rather play them on the road earlier in the season.
So next slate of games here, we're going to go through 3, 4, and 5 all at once here. The Lions come back after a little mini bye after the Thursday night game. They get Aaron Glenn and the Jets at home before 2 road games at the Panthers on Sunday Night Football and at the Cardinals in the 425 Fox window.
You have the opportunity to play again. We're not doing wins and losses here. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Two of the I'll say it, probably two of the three worst rosters in the NFL between the Jets and the Cardinals. They're young. I would say probably a little unproven,
And you're
but
getting them early before they have a chance to get their sea legs underneath them.
yeah, I mean, who's the Cardinals starting quarterback right now?
Uh,
Who's the Jets starting quarterback right
I
now?
want to say it's some combination of Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett or
Yeah,
somebody like that down in
yeah,
the desert.
yeah. So again, plenty of time to dissect these games, but um,
How about getting the
you know,
Lions and Panthers on Sunday Night Football? Because that's a week 4 game and that's going to be protected from any type of flexing. So, Lions at
yeah,
Panthers on Sunday Night Football. Kind of an interesting choice, if you ask me.
interesting one because there's no rivalry there. There's no real history there. I think when we've been good, they've been bad. When they've been good, we've been bad.
But we
Um,
never seem to play well against them. That's the issue.
true, true. I think that's an interesting team, though. I think they have been better. The last year and a half or so, I think they really started to turn a corner a little bit. But again, if we're gonna kind of talk about the quarterbacks here, I don't know if Bryce Young, Bruce Young, who's Bruce Young? Bruce.
Bruce might be
Um,
okay.
yeah. I don't know really what you got in Bryce Young at this point. So, you know, we'll see. But again, as this lays out, like you got that game at the Bills. Okay, you got your second prime time game there, Sunday Night Football against the Panthers. Again, kind of a strange matchup. And then going out to the desert where the Lions haven't had really any problems in the last couple of times putting things together against the Birds, but um, not not the most daunting stretch that you would think. I think to start the season.
It really isn't. And I'm sure they're going to be favored in 4 out of their first 5.
Yeah.
Obviously, you never expect your actual wins and loss record to directly line up with
No.
your betting odds, but they're going to be favored in 4 of their first 5, I would almost certainly imagine.
Yeah.
Which brings me to another topic that I'm sure I will be discussing over the course of this offseason and into the season, and
Hmm.
that's the bye week. It's been much worse. There's been times where the Lions have gotten a week 3 or a week 4 bye week or something stupid like that. But very rarely do they ever get a favorable bye late in the season where it's going to help. And
Hmm.
it's better than it was last year, but the Lions get a week 6 bye. So that's going to be middle part of October. So they're still going to have a lot of football to play after that week 6 bye week. So for whatever reason, the NFL just doesn't seem to want to do them any. They say they mix it up every year, but I'm not
Hmm.
seeing it. It seems like
Hmm.
they're always one of the first teams to get a bye week year in and year out. But like
Good.
it or not,
Yeah. Good Sunday to go out to an apple orchard though, kind of
yeah,
mid
that's
October
true.
like that.
That's true. Yep,
But
yep, absolutely. I guess glass half full. And that leads us then to our week 7 matchup at home against the Green Bay Packers, 425, America's Game of the Week window on Fox. So you get a whole 2 weeks to gear up for your first divisional test of the 2026 season.
yeah, and I think the Packers have been that team that really approaching this as like a season ticket holder. We've seen them in prime time. We've seen them in Thanksgiving. We've seen them a lot of times towards the second half of the season. Um, this is territory we really haven't seen them in where you start to kind of get to that middle part of the schedule. You get them at home, you get them on a Sunday. Yes, it is not a 1 p.m. game, it's a 4:25 game. Um, but again, the Packers are going to be interesting. That is going to be what is Micah Parsons like by that time, right? With his health.
It
We saw
can't be
when
a
he was
given
fully
that he's going to
healthy.
be out there because of how late in
No,
the season that injury took
no,
place.
no. So again, if you're playing, I mean, we will play them late in the season, which we'll get to later on. But at least for this home game, he could be a little bit of a question mark.
And then right after that Packers game, the day after Halloween, we're into the month of November, November 1st, week 8. The Lions are back in the 1 o'clock on Fox window as they host the Minnesota Vikings. So you have Packers at home, Vikings at home in back to back weeks. Before in week 9, they go on the road to play the Miami Dolphins again, 1 o'clock on Fox. So you got Packers at home, Vikings at home, on the road at the Dolphins, your first 3 games coming out of the bye week.
Yep, you'll get the Kyler Murray experience, provided he is still the starting quarterback of the Vikings at that time.
You got that right. And that leads us to one of the craziest stretches of football that I've seen in quite some time. So you have the international game that we've been talking about all offseason. We knew that the Lions were overdue for an international game. We knew that because they had the 9th home game and the team decided not to do anything with season ticket prices. That was kind of the writing on the wall that one of those 9 home games was going to be earmarked for an overseas game, and that's exactly how that played out. The question was who are they going to play, because we knew earlier this offseason that it was going to be the Munich Germany game, which made a lot of sense because of the Lions' marketing efforts and whatnot over in Germany. It made a lot of sense for that to be the destination. But it wound up being the Fighting Rossinis that are going to be the team on the docket in Munich. Patriots, Lions, 9:30 a.m., a Fox game, which is kind of unique for those international games. But the defending Super Bowl runners-up against the Lions in Germany, 9:30 a.m. on Fox, Week 10. Your thoughts?
Well, this one hurt because knowing we were getting the schedule that we were getting, and knowing that we would probably have one of our division opponents lined up for Thanksgiving. That's kind of the way that things have been going.
Yeah.
I was kind of heartbroken to see that the Patriots were the Germany game. That was a game that I really wanted to see in
And I'm
person.
sure a
You
lot of
don't,
other season ticket holders feel the
yeah,
same way.
yeah. We don't get them at home that often, and certainly when we did last, Tom Brady was probably the quarterback. So
We went belt to ass on him in that Sunday night game, right, against
yeah,
or under Patricia.
yeah, yeah. So that one stung a little bit, but I think they're really trying to market this. I think they are maybe seeing where Germany's interest is in the game, and you get a player like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's very, very marketable.
And
I think
active in that community.
yeah, yeah. And then you bring in obviously the New England Patriots, which if you probably asked a Germany native to go ahead and identify like logos and team names, they probably do the Patriots, Cowboys, and a couple other teams. I mean, they are very household with that. So yeah, kind of a premier matchup goes the way of Munich instead of Ford Field.
But it's
Not
interesting though, because you've seen all these international games over the years, and they tend to be more white bread and vanilla than anything else. You
yeah,
see a lot of Falcons, Bengals, or Jaguars and and they usually don't do a
Titans or
divisional
something.
game. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. It's more white bread than anything else. Patriots Lions is probably going to be one of the more appealing international matchups out of all the games this year.
And really like maybe a future podcast episode we can get into the whole TV discussion.
That's already on my brain. I want to
But
deep dive into this.
Lions Patriots to me, if that was at Ford Field, that was going to be a Sunday night football game.
Oh yeah, hundred
And it's
percent.
not. So you wonder like Fox getting that as a premier Germany game that they're getting. NFL
Right.
Network not doing really the approach on these games that they once did. Now that they're kind of under the ESPN umbrella, like it just kind of opens up all these interesting talking points and kind of where the league is going with streaming and all this that and the other thing. But yeah, Fox gets the game, so I don't anticipate that'll be you know Tom Brady and Burkhardt calling that in Germany, but
It's probably going to be a Kenny Albert and Jonathan
yeah,
Vilma special or something like that.
something like that. Yeah,
But in any case, what we've grown accustomed to over the years after these international games is for the teams that participate to then go right into their bye week. And for whatever reason, Phil, that's not the case. And I think it's because of the proximity of that game to Thanksgiving. I think that was the league's official explanation behind that, because it would be really goofy to have a game and then have a bye week and then have the ensuing game be played on Thanksgiving. But it just seems like the alternative isn't really much more favorable. So immediately following the Patriots game over in Germany, you come home and play the Buccaneers 1 o'clock on Sunday. That's going to be a CBS game, which still throws me off every time they do NFC on
yeah,
CBS, because I'm
yeah.
just so used to that being the AFC flagship, even though they changed the TV rights about 5-6 years ago. But yeah, right after that, you come home, play the Buccaneers at home, and then quick turnaround, you play the Bears at home on Thanksgiving. So what's that amount to? 3 games in 12 days?
and,
That's a
and
tough,
five in the
tough
month of
stretch.
November. I
Exactly.
have never seen one month with 5 games before.
So
Like
for a
that
team
is
that's
unprecedented territory.
Yeah, exactly. So for a team that struggles with injuries and has struggled with
Yeah.
durability over the last few years, a stretch like that is not going to be a favorable setup for a team that is just hoping to get a little bit of luck in the durability department.
Yeah, and it's not like the hardest situation to go from Miami to overseas. Like you're not going from Seattle to Germany I mean they pick something East Coast, it'll be warm for that game, but again, you're still going on a flight overseas, and they can be on the most premier airliner in the world, but for guys nursing injuries, being, you know, seated for that long is wildly uncomfortable.
Which I
So you
guess
just
if you
have to
think about it,
hope
it's no
that
worse than flying to say San Francisco or something like that. But
yeah,
even still, it's a lot to ask. No doubt
yeah,
about it. I heard
yeah.
something about how the 49ers are traveling like 38,000 miles over the course of this upcoming season.
Mm.
And that's just insane.
Are they playing like an East division or something as like the
Well, and
crossover?
they're
Is that why?
also and they're also playing that game week 1 in Australia. So that's
Oh yeah,
where a
yeah. Yep,
lot of
that's
those
right.
miles are going.
Yeah.
But so I guess it could be worse, but that's still a lot to ask to have that turnaround going from Munich back home to play the Buccaneers and then Thanksgiving right after that. Phil, I didn't get too deeply into that because I wanted to kind of pose this as a separate little issue here.
Yeah.
Bears Lions on Thanksgiving. It's something that we've all seen time and time again.
Mhm.
What do you think about how the league is still kind of trying to beat into submission the
Yeah.
Lions hosting a divisional opponent? Doesn't that seem a little tired to you at this point? I mean, I get that, okay, let's say the league kind of knew all along that they were going to put the Patriots in that Germany game. So you take them off the schedule. The rest of their home opponents don't really, in a vacuum, seem all that impressive. So maybe the NFL's hands were more or less tied on this, but it just seems like the whole divisional opponent on Thanksgiving thing is a little played out to me. What do you think?
It is also, and I think from a Lions vantage point, I think the thing that really kind of irks me about it is, that final week of the regular season has to be a division opponent. So if you're already taking one of them away as your Thanksgiving opponent, it's more of a likelihood that you're going to be on the road than you're going to be at home. And I think that is putting the Lions at a disadvantage. So I understand, like, hey, Lions, Bears, Detroit, Chicago, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, some of the other guys, they've got Khalif Raymond now. Like, I mean, that game sells itself. Again, another one of these games that you could have put on Sunday Night Football without question. Like, that even could have been a week one kind of Sunday Night Football sort of game. CBS gets it 1 o'clock. That is the one thing that is interesting though is it is now a 1 o'clock game, of course, instead of 12:30 or,
Yep.
or 12:40 like they've had in the past. So um again, I understand like they want to make it very, very tradition based. Lions have some great rivals inside this division. Um I just think from a scheduling quirk, if they're going to have that division team be the final game of your regular season, I think it puts the Lions at a wild, wild disadvantage.
100%. And we're going to get to that as we get to the back end of the schedule here. So that wraps up a month where you called it out, Phil. 5 games in the month of November. And in case you want to get really deep into the weeds, 5 games over a 26-day stretch. So, in case you're doing math, that's 1 game every just over 5 days on average. That's like something I've never seen before. And
Oh,
again, it's not fair to paint the Lions with a wide brush because 2026 is definitely, without question, it's a new year, new players, new lots of things. So you really can't look back in the past and make generalizations about a team that hasn't even taken the field yet, but a team that traditionally, recently, has struggled with durability and staying healthy. That's not a promising layout to kick off the back half of their schedule with. Heading into December after the little mini bye after Thanksgiving, Lions go on the road to play the Atlanta Falcons. So it's a situation again, Phil, where, okay, you have a tough little stretch there. You get some time off. And then this game at Atlanta seems as trap gamey as it gets to kick off the month of December.
Yeah, I think again another team that has some quarterback issues, but I think you know what you were starting to get with Bijan Robinson, where he is in Jahmyr Gibbs kind of territory in camp. I think the Falcons are going to be feisty. I've never viewed the Falcons as a difficult place to go win, but they are a team that has given the Lions some issues here, in the last decade or so. So we'll see what this team is. The NFC South to me is still a really, really big mystery. We've already talked about the Saints and Panthers, and of course we had the Bucks sprinkled in there too. I think it's a very much a toss-up division, even though the Bucks have had a lot of success here recently. Um, I think we were waiting for the whole Kirk Cousins thing in Atlanta to work. It didn't. Michael Penix, he's the guy. Well, they brought in Tua, so we'll see what happens there. But um, hopefully by this point the Lions have stacked some wins up. You know, but again, I don't think that is the most difficult environment to go play in.
No. So the Lions then in Week 14 come home to play the Titans in a 1:00 Fox game. Again, a game you should take care of business in because it's going to get a lot dicier after this. So now you're down to your final 4 games of the season. You got 3 divisional games left, and if you've been paying any sort of attention to us so far, you realize, wait a minute, none of those divisional games have been on the road yet. Exactly. So here's what your last 4 games are looking like, Phil. You're at the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. You come home to play the Giants on Monday Night Football right after Christmas. You're at the Bears in Week 17, 4:25 on Fox. So you know it's going to be chilly and the sun will have gone down by then. And then Week 18, flex time. They don't decide those until the very, very last minute at the Packers.
It's crazy.
As if the Lions needed any more middle fingers from the league. What a way to close out this season.
Hashtag grit. Hashtag doing it for the storylines.
Sure.
Man, I maybe it's because I've just heard the phrase 1.5 million times with the Pistons season.
The Pistons won again. Oh, not that one.
But referencing the teams that we enjoyed while we were, in high school and college, where the phrase was, "If it ain't rough, it ain't easy."
If it ain't rough, it ain't right.
Or if it ain't rough, it ain't right. But the problem is this is just a scheduling malpractice put into effect here on the Lions with everything that we just talked about in November. They're going to go ahead and give you, I think, 2 very kind of cupcake vanilla. All right, nothing much to see here. 2 places that don't, I think, have the most passionate fans in the world with the Falcons and the Titans in back-to-back games. But then to load in that second half of December going into January, 3 road games. Yes, that Minnesota game is, of course, in a dome. But at Bears, at Packers to close this thing out.
Which I feel like they just did this a year ago, how they lumped all of their away games in division at the tail end of the season.
Yeah. And again, we were just talking about this a moment ago, but if this is the Giants that the Lions are facing at home on Thanksgiving, does that maybe free up a home game in Week 18? I think the Lions need to ask around, what do we got to do to get a Week 18 game against a division opponent at home?
Well, it was also, remember we talked about how the NFC and the AFC TV rights used to be more rigid back in the day. It used to always be the Lions would play an NFC team the year that Fox had the game, In the year CBS had the game, they'd play the AFC team that would have been on their
Yeah.
schedule. And it just kind of worked out that way. Now that they've kind of fungled everything up a little bit, you can play any team on Thanksgiving, regardless of if they're NFC or AFC, and regardless of which TV network is broadcasting the game. So in this instance, you would have been stuck with either the Jets or the Titans as your Thanksgiving Day game. And I don't think the NFL thought that was a favorable draw at all for them, which is why they decided to just go with the safe route and just pick a divisional opponent, especially the one where you probably have the most amount of bad blood between the organizations. So from an NFL standpoint, I get that, but you're absolutely right, Phil, how that basically puts the writing on the wall that you're going to have that backloaded road schedule, because how else is it going to be laid out otherwise?
Yeah. And, you know, with the exception of playing on the road at Buffalo, being in one of these last two spots, you couldn't have found two places that are going to be, it's going to be snowy. It's going to be cold. That's what they want to present on TV,
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately for the Lions, I guess if you really want to go all silver lining about it, I mean, these are the only two cold weather environments they will play in the whole season. Because, like we said, when we get the Bills, it's going to be in September, where it's going to be nice and toasty outside
yeah.
on a September evening. You're getting the Panthers in a warm enough weather environment early in the year to where it's going to be 70 degrees at kickoff. You're going to be playing Miami in November, to where you've got to worry more about hurricanes than you do anything else. And then every other road game on your schedule is going to be a dome team. So really, you're just gearing up for two games where the weather is going to be junky and everything else should be manageable. But again, it just seems like we just did this.
Yeah.
Usually the NFL tries to not pull the same hijinks in consecutive years.
Yeah. It's, if you want kind of my conclusion on this schedule, I think it kind of sucks. I think we, as a fan, saw the metrics, we heard the talk about it, and bought into it to some degree that, oh, hey, the Lions should have the easiest schedule.
And that's exactly why I said that was a
You know?
load of bula at the very
Yeah.
beginning of the show, because, okay, you can line all these teams up and just look at everything in a vacuum. But now that you're adding a little bit of context to it,
Yeah.
this is almost like Murderer's Row right here.
Yeah. And, I think you see that first slate of games. And if for some reason the Lions struggle out of the gate, they're dead in the water. Let's just call it like that without really making any predictions on it. Um, so we'll see. Yes, by talent standpoint, there are some pretty weak teams in the bunch, but whether it's the international game thrown in on weird rest coming back, getting maybe the most important game on your schedule on Thanksgiving. And for some reason, we've had the yips on Thanksgiving here. Um, 5 games in November, like it's daunting.
Yeah.
It's daunting to say the least.
Yeah. I do want to dive a little deeper into the schedule, and I think we can probably do that on our next episode, because I want to look at how their national TV breakdown was laid out for us this year. And I also want to
Yeah.
talk about some other games around the NFL at large, particularly around holidays or on holidays and things like that, that we just don't have time to do in this episode. So I do kind of want to make this kind of like the part one schedule release edition, and then
Yeah.
have our next episode be part two. But kind of wrapping this up here, because this is going to be the Lions focused part of our schedule release discussion here. Is this a schedule, given what you just said, is this a schedule that is going to be conducive to the Lions getting off the schneid and getting back into the playoffs again? Or are you concerned that this isn't going to really set the Lions up to do much different than what they did this past year, or even worse?
So, in my opinion, I think it is going to have to be, what are we looking like by the time we get to Germany in November 15th? Yes, you do got the Packers and Vikings at home. You got a lot of easy teams sprinkled in there.
The
They
way the
may not
league
be assured.
works, you pretty much assume that you win your home games and you try and steal as many as you can on the road.
I think this is one of those ones that you have to go ahead and hope, if you're a Lions fan, that you have gone off to such a hot start that the other three teams in the division are going to cannibalize themselves. And you have a 2-game lead going into the final stretch of the season that you can afford to slip up a game or two. Because otherwise, if you don't, let's not overlook the Giants either. At
No.
that part of the schedule in December, they are very, very young, but they have a ton of great young talent on both sides of the ball now.
And let's not forget, they don't have some numbnut as head coach. They have
No.
John Harbaugh as their new
Yeah.
head coach.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be mindful of. But again, looking at things from a logic standpoint, okay,
Mhm.
so we got 5 games before the bye week and then 3 games after the bye week before the trip to Germany. So you're talking 8 games. I think if the Lions are able to hold serve in the games that they're going to be favored and they go into that Germany game at 7-1, I think you're feeling a little bit better about things. If
Mhm.
you're closer to 5-3, then I would be extremely concerned about that stretch run.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, maybe we're looking at the schedule, and if we're saying that the Patriots are kind of that break point in the schedule, how did you look against the Packers and Vikings at home?
Right.
Right? Like, those are tests that you're looking at like late October, early November, and pretty good for litmus tests. So
Well, that's all the time we have for you on this schedule release edition of Kneecaps for Breakfast. I wish we were a little bit more upbeat about it, but Phil and you and I are reacting in real time to this, so
S-
this is the best
I
we can
think,
do.
yeah. And here's the thing, like, again, a lot of things can change. Did the Lions do enough in free agency? Absolutely not. But I think both of us agreed, like, the draft felt kind of reassuring to play it safe and get guys that, like, you feel like can make some kind of contribution, at least with the first couple of picks they made. Um, you know, I feel like we're closer to I won't even say winning the division, but like making the playoffs than we are getting the first pick in the draft or anything like that, as we should with this talent. But you just simply do not know until these games are played. This is the schedule that we got. I think it's a weird schedule. Like, I would love to hear some commentary from the league office on what went into this one. But yeah, we were served a curveball.
We sure were, and we will be back next time to continue to break things down a little bit and to take a closer look at the NFL schedule. So we hope you join us in a couple of weeks for that episode and much more. For Phil Byrne across the way, Vince Progar saying good morning. Go Lions, forward down the field, over and out.